Hello, everybody. Welcome to the front row. We are so
Again.
again. We are so excited for tonight's conversation with E.B. Lewis as we talk about his amazing artistry and just the impact he's had on children's literature. So, as you are coming in, you were here before. Share. Continue to join this conversation. This will be an interactive space. I do have questions that I have crafted, but we also will be taking questions from those watching. We're going to start off with him just sharing about his background. We're going to get into how he got into his career as to where he's at today. And then we will have an opportunity to see his live studio. So we're going to jump right in. We're just going to jump in. Hello, EB again.
Hello again. I'm an artist and not a computer guy. So
you know what? This is all new space.
I just had no idea I was gone. And I was having a presentation to myself. It was great.
It was the run through.
Okay. So again, back to where the beginning of my career, and basically talking about how I got into the industry, and talking about how the opportunities have presented themselves to me, which through just the grace of God, how life, the courses that are set in front of you. Knowing that opportunities are there and knowing which opportunities to take advantage of and look. And you don't ever say no. I've learned that. You get on a train. It might not be the train when you look at it, might not be the color that you're looking for. Or you open the door's open and you see that the seats might not be in good shape or what have you. But nonetheless, I've learned, you still get on the train because you can always get off at the next stop. And so has been my mantra for my life, that I know whenever the opportunities present themselves, I will jump on it just to see where it's going to take me. And this one took me to where I am today in front of you. I mean, doing books and children's and doing work around the world, doing art that in a million years I would have never thought, the dream of this. Being a little kid out of Philadelphia, growing up in a little small community called Frankfurt, and running around the streets of Frankfurt and driving my parents crazy. Being a problem child, I was the problem child. I was the child that my parents, I feel for them. Being a parent myself, I know what I put them through, and it was not fun for me or them, I'm sure. But for me, failing the third grade. And just not knowing where to turn. I needed direction. By the time I reached sixth grade, I was a complete mess. My parents were coming up to the school weekly. Teachers hated to see me come into the classroom. They knew that they were going to have little Earl next year. They did not want little Earl in that classroom. So by the time sixth grade came around, it was a life-changing moment. And I hesitate to tell the story, but I have to give you a sense of who this person is. And I share this story with children to understand that no matter where you are in that life's process, that you keep moving, you keep striving forward, just looking for that opening. And I believe, and I mentioned this earlier, that Mark Twain said the two most important days in one's life is the day you were born and the day you realize why you were. And so I needed to know why I was born. And what happened, sixth grade, I end up finally making it to sixth grade, by the skin of my teeth. And I'm sitting in an auditorium filled with sixth graders. It was called Career Day. I remember it as it happened yesterday. And the auditorium was filled with sixth graders. The stage had about 10 people on the stage from different professions. The newspaper was in the back with the camera, the whole 9 yards. And I'm right up front with the teacher. And I was that kid that needed to be next to the teacher. And so it started. And each one of our guests started to share their life and their life story. And we were excited to have them. And so it came around to the question and answer period. And little Charlie Shoemaker, I'll never forget him, he raised his hand and said that he wanted to be a doctor. And so the doctor on the stage said, do you like science? And he said, yes. What about math? He also said, yes. We didn't question it because he was the president of the student council. And if Charlie said he wanted to be a doctor, by golly, he would probably end up becoming a doctor. So I sat there thinking about what I can say. What can I say to get the same attention Charlie's getting? So I raised my hand. The teacher sitting next to me put my arm down. So they chose someone. I raised my hand again. Again, she put my arm down. I got the other one up. And so they picked me. I should have left my hand down. I said that when they chose me, I said I wanted to be a lawyer. And I only said that to get the same attention that Charlie got. But instead, I really had no intention of being a lawyer at all. But I wanted to get that attention that Charlie got. So when I said that, the whole 6th grade class, teachers included, laughed.
Oh, no.
They laughed so hard that I hear it right now.
Oh, no.
I didn't know what to do with that emotion. I sat there in that auditorium, and I was too embarrassed to look around. Everyone was laughing. I could only look ahead in front of me on the stage. And I could see our guests are baffled. Their expressions are they can't understand why the whole auditorium is laughing at this one kid, me. And so with my praying eyes, I looked up at the lawyer who I directed my question to, hoping that he would save me. And he looked down and he looked right at me. We caught eyes. And I'm praying, say something, say something. And he looked out at the audience and looked back at me. And he just moved to the next question. And that can destroy a child.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about your self-value, your self-esteem, self-worth, all those important things. And on that day, I felt like this. I needed help. I needed somebody to rescue me. And that person came in the way of, I'm going to show you this person who saved my life. I'm going to go at this point to my, hopefully I do not lose you again.
No, we are right here.
Okay. I pushed the right button this time. I'm going to show you this guy, this man who I owe my life to. Here we go. All right, here we go. Here's little EB, grandmom, my wonder years. And here's little EB around 1st grade trying to figure it out.
Share, EB. I don't see it.
Oh, you don't see? Oh, I didn't share screen. There's the technology. Okay, let me go back. We're still having this. Okay, so let me go back and share screen.
Yeah. But what I love, even as you're doing that, is just how you talked about how, and which we'll see, like, I think, I really appreciate you sharing that story, because I think a lot of times, me as an educator and also those who are listening as parents, why it's so important that we really understand the words and what they can do to a person, right? But then, right, as you said, someone came along who ended up being that like saving grace to see yourself. I mean, because a lot of times when we do have kids who are look to be problematic, it's more so because they're trying to find their why, you know?
They're trying to find a way, right? They're just looking for, they're looking for help.
Yes.
No, and I needed somebody to care. I think caring is the most important word in the English language, I believe. And the reason we're in the situation that we're in is because there are many individuals who stop caring. And to change it, it requires one to care. And I needed this person. We talk about care all the time. We do it when we talk about care from a seated position. And people often say, I care. Oh, yeah, I do. I care about this and I care about that. But you can't care from a seated position. Care requires action. It requires you to get up and do something. And this man, this is little E. We're seeing the images now?
Yes, we do.
Okay. Here's little EB, the early years prior to my brothers and sisters. I had 5 brothers and sisters. 4 of us, was 5 in total. And there is little EB. And then this is the guy who changed my life. He just changed my life. No, not him. He scared me. The living daylights out of me. This man right here changed my life. This is my Uncle Bradley. And what he did, as I mentioned, as I talk, when I share this story with the children at the schools, is that he cared enough. He left his 3 daughters and his wife on a Saturday morning, came across the bridge from New Jersey into Philadelphia, and picked me up and took me in his car, and we drove to Broad Street. And we get out the car, and there I'm thinking that we're going to the psychologist. I figured that because I've never been with my uncle by, just the 2 of us in the car driving anywhere. So I just figured that my parents had made some kind of agreement with my uncle to take me to the psychologist. So I get there to this building called Ritter Hall, Temple University, and I jump out the car and I'm like, where are we going? Where are we going? And we're walking up this set of stairs, and I smell this fragrance of linseed oil and turpentine, a combination that just to this day just gets me excited. It's like, if you want to think about something, it's like, you have fragrances that you like the smell of gasoline, or first time you lit a cigarette, which I hate the smell of cigarettes, but that first burn is amazing, or fried chicken. Linseed oil time does it for me. And so I'm walking up the steps, and then there's another set of, we walk through the doors, and the fragrance of this aroma is getting stronger and stronger as we're proceeding through the building. And the second set of doors open up, and there are these kids in the front, inside this room, and they're drawing and they're painting, and they're playing with clay, and Miles Davis is playing in the background, and I'm like, what is this magical place? And I turned to him and I wanted to kiss him, because these are my people. This is my tribe. And I was just so excited. I couldn't believe that there's a place like this that exists. And so this man, my uncle, what he did in terms of his sacrifice that he made, he took me to Saturday morning art class, this wonderful, magical place. He took me there for 6 years straight, every Saturday for 6 solid years, and it changed my life. He introduced me to books. I was not reading. I hated books. I struggled. I'm dyslexic. And at that time, I stuttered. And so when I would stand up in front of a classroom to read aloud, when the teacher often made me do, it sounded like, and the kids laughed, and I remember that. And so to go into a place, a magical place, and then have my uncle say, all the children all the artists that I know, if you want to become an artist, you have to, all the artists that I know are well read. So you have to read. And so he said, I'm going to give you books. I'm going to test you. I'm going to give you a new artist every month, and I want you to read, and I'm going to ask you questions. And then at the end of the month, we'll see how much you've read and where you go from here. And so the first person, he would send me books like Picasso and Renoir and Cezanne and Tanner. Before you know it, I was running off to the library on my own. I was struggling in the beginning because these are big books. Yeah. And he would ask me questions about these artists, and I would be able to answer. Because now I am fascinated. I am turned on. Everything about education became new, and the world became a different magical place. And so my grades changed. So I wanted to go to college. This is a kid that hated school, all of a sudden talking about college. And I get to Temple University. I only applied to one school because that's where he was teaching. And when I graduated from Temple, I graduated with a 3.94 average.
Wow.
And I never looked back. Now I'm an educator. I teach. I'm a professor at 2 universities in Philadelphia. And I love the arts and education and children's books. And this is the man who changed it all. So I tell this story to get teachers and parents to know it's about helping your child find that place, that belonging place. I believe each one of us has a reason for being. And it's just a matter of being exposed to it. And so here's my work. This is the work I did long before children's books. These are paintings of children that, without knowing that I was going to end up becoming someone who this was going to be my life's work. This painting is called the Fountain of Youth. This one is the Mischief Makers on Wissahickon. And just going around very quickly, just to show the work prior to children's books. I love water, and watercolor had became my medium of choice. But I love water, just bodies of water. I love being near water, around, surrounded, just in the water. I can't explain this the lure that this has for me, water. And so my paintings largely, you'll see a lot of landscape paintings from me that are centered around water.
Mm. Now, even as you're, so this is like amazing. You said so much so far. So the one thing I really want to make sure that we don't gloss over is that the moment you found your why, like your whole life changed. You know what I mean? Like the moment you realize this is what I'm meant to do, you had the inspiration to want to be great at this, and it made you want to be great in all these other areas.
Well, what happens? Yes, what happens is once you, there's a saying that we always use in education that is reading is fundamental, and I don't believe that. I think what is fundamental is getting a child to get turned on. Once they're turned on, then the tools like reading become fundamental.
Yeah.
Once they're locked in, you can't stop them from going to a book. Once they're focused, if you ask anyone who has one have that path, they're just fascinated. Their world has changed. Yeah. And it's about getting that world to open up for them, because you want to know more. All I could do is I couldn't wait to open another book about an artist and see and see how their lives coincided with mine, or see how their lives were different than mine, to see their work and the level of their process and the level of focus, and to this idea of, it's my idea of life. I don't use the word try. I don't put try. And I hate when my students talk about, I'm going to try to do this thing. Take that out to lexicon. I'm going to do what I want. In return, the response to that should be, I'm going to do my best. And my waking hours, every waking hour is in the pursuit of perfection. That wasn't my childhood. But once I learned that this is my quest, this is my purpose in life, then by all means, my world is about striving to be the best, and not the best in art, but the best for the world, not the best in the world, best for the world. And so this is the work that, as a result of that happens from that research and from that passion of finding the thing that you love. Mm. And these are just pieces before children's books. I'm just going to take you through them really quickly to my work in children's books. These are just paintings. This is John Rankin's house in Ripley, Ohio. Over 2,000 slaves had come through this building, through this home. They all hid up under the floorboards. And just that fascination of history that you will see in my work. Now, I had no idea that this work here later on in life would get me to have a body of work in a museum. There's a museum in Niagara Falls called the Underground Railroad Museum, and there was Amtrak built a $42 million train station there in Niagara Falls, and he built it right on the Underground Railroad. And there was a custom house there that was in real poor repair. And so they thought it was wise of them to actually say, let's take this custom house and turn it into a museum. So they hired the same people to design the African American Museum in Washington, D.C. to design their museum. So this group contacted me and asked whether or not I would be interested to do the museum. And so you'll go there, and every painting in the entire museum is my work. The stories told of Harriet Tubman. This is the main departure of Harriet Tubman. This is her point of departure into Canada. Had Frederick Douglass took this route. And so when you go there, the whole entire story, the whole entire museum is told through my eyes. And now Smithsonian has hired me to tell the story of, at Monticello, I'm telling the true story of Thomas Jefferson and his slaves. So that's the body of work that I'm working on now. So not only am I doing the fine artwork in the children's books, now I'm doing museums, which I'm excited about where this has taken me.
So even there, let me ask, so It's so much. So even there, just being able to be commissioned to do those works. I know earlier, just seeing the lifestyle images of like the young boys and things like that. Like, what is are the inspirations from these moments you're able to experience? Like, this part of history, and you said nature. Like,
the inspiration is coming from my love of life. I love being alive. It's a kick, I wake up and I'm often asked, where do I get my inspiration? And I say it's all around me. It's kind of hard stepping out of bed without tripping over a great piece of inspiration. I'm everywhere I look, I'm inspired. And so it's like here, this is a perfect example. This tree, this is, where do you find it? I'm fascinated by the shadows and the light. That I'm inspired by that. And so that's what is the reason why you see this tree in front of you, for my love of nature and my love of mystery. Look at what's going on up in that tree. The things that you don't see are just equally as important as the things you do.
And do you find yourself like locked in? Like, how long would it take? Like, even this painting, it's so many intricate details. Like, how long would this take you?
It took me, the real answer to this question, how long it took me to do this painting, 40 some years. Because it's a constant, process. It takes, some paintings take 3 days, some paintings take a week, some paintings take a month. It depends on how large, how in detail, how involved, whatever. But it took me, 40 some years to be able to do this painting. These are just pieces that before children's books. I had no idea. Again, this painting is about this child sitting in front of this wall. So the painting is as much about the wall, the crumbling of its foundation. What happens in gentrification, where neighborhoods just cease to exist, and children are left out. And so my world is about children. This is a painting, a book that is sold today about hope. This is a sparrow living in the Western Wall in Israel. And my work will take me around the world. So I will travel anywhere in the world, from Madagascar to Morocco to Istanbul to Israel. I don't care where. I will go to get do the research, make sure that the work is correct. Because I don't want anyone to open my book and see the work and say, if they're from there, saying, he doesn't really know our world. He doesn't really know this experience. He hasn't been here. I don't ever want that to happen. So I will get on a plane and I will go and I will study that work. This is being in Israel. This is Charleston, South Carolina, the basket women. Now this is a large painting. This is like a 3 foot by 5 foot painting.
Oh, wow.
So my watercolors sometimes get quite large. And then I'm investigating the basket women. This is what brought me to Charleston, the Sweetgrass basket women. I did a whole series of these women in their intimate places, intimate stations, intimate settings, I should say. This is one of the plantations, not Magnolia. This is Middleton Plantation, where they actually have blacksmiths actually working today. And this is one of the blacksmiths there. The cotton fields. And this painting is called the Lily of the Field. My work is about history and documenting this history and life of our people, and showing the resilience and the pride and the strength. They were not all downbeat. Whenever you see it, was hard pressed when I did this research of my work for my books. It was hard pressed to find slaves there in that field, blacks in that field looking proud, and I knew they were there, and I knew they exist. So but we don't see them. So I wanted to show that. And so these paintings are showing the pride. Look at this woman. I mean, look at that. Just like in defiance. I want my work to show that, give that kind of feeling. And this was after this piece here. This is not my work, but this piece showed me that my work needed to be about strength and about resilience and about. I wanted to show my work. I'm speeding up here, but I can't think of the word I'm looking for. But this piece here talked about the Tuskegee Airmen and how they were not respected. And this particular artist, Jamaican American artist, did this body of work. This piece here was one of the pieces. He did a body cast of himself. It had planes crashing into his body. And
that's what that is.
And yes, these are gold planes crashing into his body. And unfortunately, if you go to the museum in North Carolina, in Raleigh, you'll see this piece. And then on the plaque, it reads that Michael Richards did this piece, not knowing that it was going to be very significant, because that's how he lost his life. It was like he lost his life in the 9/11 plane crash, where the planes crashed into the World Trade Center. His studio was there. And so here's a piece where he's actually doing this, these planes crashing into the body of a Tuskegee Airman, and that's how he loses his life. But this piece actually, it charged me with doing work, a body of work called Lotto Icons, because I wanted my work to talk about injustice and the injustice of our children. And so what I do is I'm doing these paintings on lottery tickets, and I scratch off kind, and I scratch through these tickets only to uncover the child that's underneath. And so I don't know whether or not these, I don't know whether the lottery ticket that I'm working on could be $100,000 lottery ticket, winning ticket, and I will never know, because I will never scratch the ticket. For example, there are over 40 tickets behind this painting that I never scratch, because I only want to uncover what is more valuable than anything you can scratch on a lottery ticket. And so these are paintings that are then framed like 12th century Byzantine medieval icons that are then the museums around the world are buying these faster than I can do them. So I collect lottery tickets from all over the world. So if I'm in Spain and I'm there, I will get the lottery ticket from that country or that city, and then I will take the photographs, work from the children there, to put these children on top of these lottery tickets, only to scratch off, to uncover. So sometimes you only see an eye like here, because like when a lottery, when you scratch, sometimes you'll see and it will say, you'll see right away, it will say loser, loss, or no winner. And so that's happened sometimes. And like our children, we don't know whether or not they're winners or losers until we scratch them enough. And so that's what these pieces are about scratching our children enough to uncover that thing that is precious. And so these are my Lotto icons. And this is the work that I do that I speak to not only the children I love, but getting people to understand the power of our children. And so here I am in Morocco, basically up close and personal, capturing children, capturing their world, and putting it into books. And so these are some pieces. This is a painting on the cover of a magazine, how I got into children's books, from the agent who called me up and said, I saw this magazine, the Artist magazine, and I want to know, I'm an agent that represents authors and illustrators of kids' books. And I want to know if you're interested in doing kids' books. And my response was no. And he said, why? And I said, because I'm a fine artist and not an illustrator. And he wanted to know what the difference was. And I explained to him, and he says, you need to see what's going on in children's books today. So what I did, I went to a bookstore and I walked in and I said, I might have an opportunity to do any books, but I don't really know from them. So could you help me out? And this woman took me through this 2 week of edification that changed my world, that introduced me to this world of children's books that when I called this guy back, I said, I got to do children's books. So the rest is history. I've done over close to 80 books.
Wow.
And this was my very first one, Fire on the Mountain. It's an Ethiopian folktale. I've done more books on Ethiopia than anybody in the country. And I actually went to Ethiopia to do one of the books called Preaching to the Chickens, not Preaching to the Chickens, that's John Lewis. Only a Pigeon. And this is how I start with books. I start with these thumbnail sketches, and then I enlarge these thumbnail sketches to show you the to see what the words are going to look like from the manuscript along with my images. So this is just a sketch, a dummy book stage. Then I go to do my research. I spend hours in the library looking at photographs and reference of what this book is going to be. Sometimes I can do it in the library going through the research, and then there are many times I actually have to get on a plane to do the research, as in many cases, the books that take place like in Israel, in Madagascar, and so on and so forth. And then I find my models. All the children that you see in my books are live children. And
really?
So I will go anywhere. I will go to a school and, come and, say I'm in the middle of a book and I need a little kid. And in this case, I needed a little kid that was Ethiopian. So I went to an Ethiopian restaurant and I walked in and I said, I need a little 7-year-old. And they said, well, we don't serve them. I said, yeah, okay.
Right.
I said, no, they found a little kid for me and I dressed him up in his native clothing, took him out behind the art museum in Philadelphia because I needed a high hill. The story takes place in Ethiopia, the high mountains of Gondar. And so I put him in front of a great big stone and took photographs of him. And when I finished the painting ended up looking like this. Another example, the waterfall that you see, the little kid to the right playing the flute. So I needed a waterfall. Went to the library, got a great photograph of a waterfall, got my little kid, dressed him up in his native clothing, and then the combination of the two. So this plus this equal this.
So with the, what you illustrating for these different books, so they'll send you these manuscripts and you will envision them, but then go out to find like real life replicas of that.
Real life references. So the children that you see are real. Like this is the book that took me to Ethiopia. I actually went to Ethiopia and I went and spent an amazing 5 weeks there in research of the Pigeon Boys. And I worked with the children. I just came back from Africa before the pandemic. I was invited to 3 countries in Ghana, Senegal, and Cote d'Ivoire. I was there for a whole month working with the kids, teaching them how to paint in watercolor and getting them excited about their lives. And down the road, another book about a little girl getting getting the responsibility for the first time to buy eggs from mother and father. And I'm not going to go through each one of them, but these are just some of the images. That point is violin. That's my son, who's the protagonist in this story. Rose of Apostle Coins. I'm not going to show you all 70, 80 books. Talking about Bessie, female aviator. I love my hair. This is on Netflix. Bookmarks. Tiffany Haddish does this book on Netflix, which was such an honor to have her be actually the first episode on Bookmarks. Is this book, I Love My Hair, with Natasha Tarpey, is a native of Chicago.
Yes, she is.
Yep. And again, this is in doing this book. I Love My Hair. I had to get this little girl to fly at the end of the story. So how did I get her to fly? I strung her up. I took some 2x4s and some dog leashes. Her sister's on the top step saying, "Can I do it next? I want to do it next. Can I do it next? Please, can I do it next?"
You just went to a park and found a family, or you? How did you find?
I went to a family and I said, "I need you to use your daughter to fly." And they said, "Okay, sure, we can do that." And then the mom you don't see because she's in the background in horror. She's like, "Whatever you do, do not touch my daughter." Because she's up higher than he is, and he's 6'8". So she's pretty up high, and that's to get the image of her flying in the book. In the story here, where her hair goes in the cornrows, so I said I could do that, and I tell the kids it's a matter of magic, and so abracadabra, cornrows. Just some of the other books. This is The Other Side. This is probably my most well-known book. This book has sold close to 1 million copies. Jackie Woodson, who I believe is genius. We have done 3 books together. And this one is one of my favorites in terms of storytelling. This is so apropos, so appropriate, because it talks about 2 little girls living on opposite sides of the fence. And here are the real little girls in the story. And to this day, these 2 little girls are still friends to this day. This book is over 200 years old. They didn't know each other prior to this story. In the book, they're not only separated by the fence, they're also separated by the spine of the book. So one little girl's on one side of the book, the other one's always on the other, all the way through the story until they touch. Once they touch, then they remain on the same side of the book throughout the remainder of the story. And here they are on the fence. Sometimes my mama gets angry. It's about a little girl whose mother's going through some tough times and she has to survive in spite of it. B.B. Moore Campbell, who was a famous author, who I had the great opportunity of working with. I worked with some great people. I worked with Maya Angelou. I did Maya's famous book. It was only 800 books we did, and it's leather bound, gold leaf. And she signed the 800, and I signed the under 800 under my signature. And if you find this book online, you will probably pay close to $5,000 or $6,000 for this copy. One of these copies. There's only 800 of them.
And what was that experience like working with her? It's unworldly, to be somebody that is an icon. I worked with John Lewis. I mean, I did the book on John Lewis. Desmond Tutu contacted me personally and said that he wanted me to illustrate his Bible, and I had to turn him down because I was too busy. And he said, let me think about it because I want you to illustrate, to be in this book. And so he thought better and thought an idea and said, I'm going to get illustrators from around the world to do illustrations in the Bible, but I'm going to give you the opportunity to do whatever image you want from the Bible if you can do that. And I said, oh my God, of course. And I did the Last Supper. And when he saw the painting, he wept. Wow.
So I worked with Langston on the Langston Hughes' book, The Negro Speaks of Rivers. So I mean, I have been blessed, to say the least. This is an amazing, amazing journey, and the journey is just continuing. And I'm just so blessed and honored to be a part of it.
I want to share with you something that one of the viewers just shared, and it goes perfectly to my next question. Her name was Marlene. She said, "Your story is so powerful. I'll forever remember that, and your artistic works are amazing. Thank you for sharing your story." And she thanked me for doing this as well. And I know her personally. She is an artist and an author here in Chicago. And so what would be your advice for those who are watching, who are up-and-coming artists and authors? What would be your advice if they're trying to, not necessarily like, I want to become like Evie Lewis, but like be able to travel the world and use their art in such a way? What would be your advice to them? My
number one advice is take the word fear out your lexicon, out your vocabulary. And because that's the thing that keeps us from moving forward. It is a thing, it's the antithesis of creativity. And to remove that, it opens the world to you, to go in at full force. And it's to be willing to make the mistake. I liken it to, for me, every day I walk into my studio, you'll see that very shortly. I walk in and I meet the dragon at the door, and it's a fire-breathing dragon. I mean, this he knows me. He's a former foe, and he knows my weaknesses as well as my strengths. And there are days where he will win, and I go suited up with armor and sword in hand and shield, the whole 9 yards. And it's about going in and knowing that this is going to be a battle, and I'm looking forward to it. And even though I don't win that day, I'm going to come back and say, I'm going to get you tomorrow, or the next day I'm going to, and it's loving that process. And so I think and that's a great lesson for our children, to get them to understand that mistakes are part of the process. And don't be afraid to make them. In our educational system, we don't allow that. Mistakes are something that we have all too often. We're telling our students not to do. Don't make a mistake. Don't make a mistake. Stay within the line. I want you to do it over. As Thelonious Monk once said when he was playing with one of his musicians, he heard a guy make a mistake. He said, "I heard you make that mistake. Next time you make it loud so you don't do it again. But make the mistake." And so that's my advice. And to stay diligent to the work. I'm not making pretty pictures. I'm documenting life. This is what we do as artists, and not only the fine artists, I should say, the painters, and those individuals, the printmakers, what have you. I'm talking about the dancers and the musicians, and the filmmakers, the writers, all of us, the seven arts. The reason for being on this earth is to share love, to put it out there, and to document it. And that's what we're doing. We have become adept in this language. And this language that we're talking about is this, for me, my visual language. I have become adept. It's like me learning French or Italian, to the point when it's time for me to make a statement. I don't have to go back. I have honed my craft to a razor sharp edge. And so when it's time for me to make the statement, I go and I make that statement with this language that I have become adept in. And that's what it is. It's about wanting to do that, having the need to do that. And it's a wonderful journey. And so this is going through real quick. I'm just going, these are just books here that I've done. As I said, it's close to 80 books now. This is the Langston Hughes book. And the work is of multicultural. I paint everybody and everything, and it doesn't matter. This is a famous artist, Walter Anderson. Each Kindness is probably the #1 book in the country right now on the subject of bullying. Jackie Woodson again, genius. We did this book together about a little girl coming to a school for the very first time, and very poor, and just the story will. It will hurt your heart, and it will get kids to think, because the ending is so unexpected. And it's genius. Like I said, when you read the story, it will blow you away. As again, I said, it's not only do I do children, I do dogs and everything else. All different now. About the Juneteenth. This is the one that was read by our at the White House, ex-president's wife. Read this on stage. That's all I'm going to say about that. The first step, these images here are from a book that Preaching to the Chickens, John Lewis story, that I'm very proud to have said that I was able to do this story about his life as a child. And if you go to his the documentary they did, you'll see these paintings in the documentary used. And if you go to Atlanta at the airport, we use these paintings also in the memorial of John Lewis. And here he is as a child preaching to the chickens.
So since you've done so many with so many different people, are you pretty selective in the type of stories you do? Do you just tend to work with, like if it's a particular author, like, hey, we always work with each other?
I am very selective. I want the work to speak to me, for one. And I wanted to, I know what I want to say to the world. And in combination of what the author has presented and what how I retell the story visually. And that's what I'm doing. It's the same story, it's just retold in a different language. And that's I'm not an illustrator. I am basically a visual storyteller. So I take that manuscript and retell the story visually. And so in saying that, the stories that come to me, and I've been very fortunate to get some very powerful stories. And now I'm writing myself. After many years of only illustrating, I am now writing. And so I have books that I have written that will come out in the near future.
That's awesome. That was going to be one of my questions.
Excuse me?
No, I'm saying that's awesome. That was one of my questions. Like, what do you want to do next in your career? So now doing the author side.
Right. My next position. And ultimately after doing this work and realizing that a picture book to me is basically a movie, a film between two pieces of cardboard. So what I ultimately want to do is to do a movie. I want to do film. And so I'm going to just take you through here, and then
So this is you staging. Oh, wow.
Yeah, this is my staging. Yeah, this is my staging. Yes. And this is a true story about a little boy going to running for his life in Kentucky, and like I said, it's a true story. And he ends up at this tree here at the end. And I take this in the process. The sketch requires me to turn this body of water into the mighty Ohio River. And here he is with the dog who led him to this point. And here's the painting as a result of that. And he leaves his dog behind because he says, I love you, but I have to leave you behind. And I don't want to. But my journey, my life will begin on the other side of this river. So he gets in his little boat and gets out into the middle of the Ohio River, and the boat springs a leak, and he's out there drowning. And so who does he call for rescue? Is the dog, because he cannot swim. And I needed this dog to jump into the water to rescue him. But this dog that I'd hired would not jump into the water. We tried all sorts of things. We threw food in the water. We had the owner stand in the water and call him. Nothing worked. So after realizing that we're going to lose the light, this is how we eventually got him in the water. Which was interested in the making of this book. But he finally gets in the water and he comes to the rescue to pull him to safety, where he is now on the other side of the river. And the farmer, played by the principal of the school, comes to his rescue, and they go up to the barn where they have to sleep. And this dog that I'd hired would not go to sleep no matter what we did. So through the magic of illustration, we got him to go to sleep.
Oh, wow. He's like, I did not get paid enough for this.
And my two sons and my baby boy, Noah, and that's it. So I'm going to go back to here, and I can show you the studio that I am now in.
Yes,
and we can take questions here. I'm going to go back here and stop sharing screen, I guess. Where do I stop sharing?
Well, I removed it, and I think.
Okay, so we're seeing now. We're good?
Yeah, I just see you.
Okay, good.
Yep. So we just see you. So another question that we had was just what are some of the so many different questions. So one was just asking, like, as far as breaking into children's books, what would be your suggestion? I know for you, that wasn't necessarily your path, but there are, I think, quite a few people who are watching. Like, so currently in the state of children's books and illustration, what would be someone if they're trying to become like a hired artist or
right? My advice to someone trying to break in is it's a very difficult field to break in, but it's not impossible. And I suggest that you do. The best way to get in this field is join the organization, SCBWI, the Children's Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators. It is the best direct path to there for either writers or illustrators. And there are regional offices all over the world, and you find which one is in your neck of the woods and join them. And basically you go through that path, and that's advice. And do your due diligence. It's about timing. It's doing the due diligence, and I said it's about timing. It's the lining of the planets and the universe and the stars and the moon all lining up. And after you've done your due diligence, it is that point where the universe recognizes your work and says, "This is now your time to be presented," and that's how it works. I think that's how life works.
Yeah. Yeah. Another question, have you ever in your years of teaching come across like maybe a former student or someone you work with who is now also doing this work? And have you like collaborated with them before? And how does that
collaborated with them? No, but I have students that because I'm working at basically I taught at the University of Arts for 15 years, and then I went over to PAFA, the Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts, and which is the oldest art institute in the country. And just the talent, that is coming up today is just, staggering. Just to see, we have Amanda Gorman. The world knows her now. To see the breadth of what is possible, and it's not unusual. it's commonplace. It's a matter of exposure and putting children in the right position and believing in them. As a teacher, I tell teachers, because I teach teachers, and I tell them, kids don't care what you know until they know that you care. And it's about that that knowledge of that imparting of information. Also, which is the imparting of information is the science, the pedagogy, but the art is that relationship that you make with each child. And you can go into the beginning of a year one or two ways. You can go in and say, look at this group and say, I have, 30 problems in my classroom. Yeah. And you will have a nightmare of a year. But if you go into your classroom and say, I have 30 challenges, then it's a whole different ballgame. Now you're going like, oh my God, this is going to be great. That's what the great teachers do. Because you want an Earl Lewis, little Earl Lewis in your classroom. That's what you want. You want to see that child flip on. You want to see that switch flip. That's why you're teaching. You're teaching to see the switch flip. You want to see that turn on. I was talking about it, and it gives me chills on my, on the back of my arms and on the back of my neck. To know that those children are out there. They're waiting. They're that challenges. They've been through so much, and many of them, like me, I'm going to test you. I'm going to test and see are you who you say you are. I want to see your stay. Do you have that stability? Or you're only going to come in because I think many of them think that I have the ability. My strength is that I'm going to force you out. I'm going to make you leave. I did that to my father. That's what I'm saying. I did that to my mother. They're gone. My father left. That means I have that power. That's the way he's looking at it. So I know, sure enough, I'm going to make you leave too. And if you stay and prove him wrong, and that his expectation of you leaving, then you got him for life. He's that child that you're going to come back to, that you're going to meet one day as you're in the supermarket, and you have retired, but maybe not, And so you're going to tap him. Excuse me, are you Mrs. Burkle? Yeah. I had you as a 5th grade teacher. Really? Yeah. Something you said changed my life. And you're going like, what? Because you never know.
You don't know you're planting seeds. Yeah.
You never know. So that's why you gotta be on your P's and Q's at all times. Because those children are picking up everything. They're reading you like a sponge. They can tell whether or not you're there for good reasons, for real reasons. They will read you. You cannot hide that. Now I'm getting on my water tears.
But what you're saying is so true. And I'm just thinking about even in this space now where we're virtual, we're at home, kids are doing this and it's more time with your family, more time with those around you. And all the more they're really looking to see who is invested in them and who's not, And
they are. And that's from both sides, as parents as well as teachers. I'm the living proof. So my studio.
Yes.
Okay.
I have my final question, but I'm waiting to after the tour.
Okay. So this is my studio in Charleston, South Carolina. This is a space that not only houses where I work, but upstairs this is the carriage house of the space here. I have main house, which is an Airbnb, and I highly recommend because it's the name of my Airbnb is called La Petite Fleur, and it's going to open up in May. It should have been open, but because of COVID, I'm going to wait till May to open the doors. But it's like being in Provence, and when you step in, you have left out of this country, and you are in Europe, and I just would love you to come and visit. And so
I have to come there. I don't know the problem. I have to try this out.
This is the space here, and this is my desk. where all of the magic takes place. This is my paints. I work with at a time about 3 to 6 palettes at the same time. My water source that you see there, and the painting that's on the table here is a painting I'm working on for my very next book called, will come out next year. And the title of the book is Daddy Speaks Love. And I'm very excited about it. It's going to come out with Penguin Random House. Leah Henderson is the author of the book. And so I'm excited. But these are dads. These are dads all over the world. Dads, not, it's a cross section of dads from all over the world. And talking about their love for their children, and in turn their love for the world, in turn which is the love for their children. And it's called Daddy Speaks Love, and I'm very excited about it.
I love that. Yes. Well, this has been such a treat. I am so grateful for this time. Those watching have.
Well, I am grateful for this time. Thank you.
Yes, and people have been sharing their love, so definitely know that people are appreciating this time. As I tried to prep you before, but this is my closing question. Since it is Black History Month, okay, and you are so well traveled, and I'm sure you probably have a very diverse list. But when you think about Black history, what would you say are some staple songs that you would say would be on your Black history playlist?
Ooh, oh, my favorite, one of my favorites, I have so many, is Nina Simone, called West Wind. West Wind. It's Mary Bakiba. She does Mary Bakiba's version of West Wind, and it is haunting. It is such a powerful, powerful piece, and that's top of the list. One at the top of the list. I'm a jazz enthusiast. I love jazz and classical. So if depending on what I'm working on, will either have me listen to jazz or listen to classical. But because I love the opera and I love ballet, so I have season tickets to both. But jazz would be Miles Davis. From the album Kind of Blue, All Blue. Was the title of the song, All Blues. And so yeah, Nina Simone and Miles Davis.
I think so. You can't go wrong with both. I love it. Both.
No, not at all.
Yes, yes.
In leaving, thank you again. For this opportunity. I hope that I was able to share something that somebody can use. And that's what it's all about, to enrich lives. And I hope that's definitely my intention. And if schools, when they open up, if you want me to come to your school, I would love to do that, because I love being with the children. And if you go to my website, you will see the testimonies of my school visits. And I change paradigms. Children, I get them there, and kids are running home saying, my God, Mr. Lewis, EB told me that I'm here. I have a purpose in life. There's a reason for being here. And so that's what I do.
Well, I want you to know you will definitely hear from me. I'm actually working with another organization. We'll be releasing it come summer, but we're starting a writers and illustrating academy for kids here in Chicago. With my book club, because I introduce them to so many different authors, many of our kids are inspired to be their own storytellers, and I want to be able to provide an academy for them, and I want them to meet people in the field so they can have these kind of conversations and, just experiences. And so I'm definitely going to reach out to you to come and speak to our children here in Chicago.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, I would love that.
Thank you so much. Yes, it's been amazing. Thank you those who've been watching. Share. You can continue to share if you're watching the replay. Hopefully, just like me, you walked away with some jewels. And thank you again to the amazing E.B. Lewis. Have a great rest of your evening.
Thank you very much.
All right, take care.